And he was the first one to put everything together, basically.
And it
Just
almost didn't happen. That's
it,
the thing, is it almost didn't happen. It came together at the ninth hour, the 12th hour, the 23rd hour, or whatever you want to say. It came together at the last minute. The city of Gary, I guess, was hemming and hawing over some things, and they almost had to put the team somewhere else.
yeah,
And we will get to hear that.
yeah.
We get to hear that story.
He
I
gets it
mean,
high in the air. Left field. This one's got a chance. And let's go on a cowhide. Joyride. Sound the horn. The RailCats clear the yard.
Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome back to the RailCats Talk podcast. He's Chuck Polarek. I'm Kyle Svetich, and it was a miracle that I told you, Chuck, that after we got done recording last week's episode, and I had the overnights, that all of a sudden the RailCats were going to start signing people. Well, the day that I was going to record or edit the podcast for last week's episode, the RailCats decided they're going to go out and sign Howard Rodriguez and Grant Umberger, and I'm like, oh, great, wonderful, that's wonderful news. But after that, we've signed a handful more players. So actually, this week we can talk about two very important things coming up. Well, one very important thing is the players being signed, and something else that we hinted at last week has been 100% confirmed. So Chuck, I'll let you have center stage on that in a moment. But let's run through the players real quick. On October 31st, RailCats signed infielder Howard Rodriguez. He's returning for his second season, first full season with the RailCats. Grant Umberger. And then you have on November 1st, Jaykob Acosta, who was on the back half of last year, was a relief pitcher, pitched in a handful of games, looking for his full first season in the American Association and with the RailCats. Then November 4th, the RailCats signed right-handed pitcher Andres Diaz, who did win Pitcher of the Week at one point. I have it written down, but we'll kind of break into that in a little bit. And then on November 5th, we signed infielder Ethan Lopez. Just real quick, any of those players kind of jump out at you? We'll break them down a little bit further. I'll have all their stats pulled up, but is there anyone that kind of jumps out at you at the moment?
well, I think that we need to refer to Howie as Railcast Talk Podcast alumni because he has been on here once.
Hmm.
So he should be the Railcats Talk Podcast alumni, Howard Rodriguez. And hopefully we get him on here again.
Which
Uh,
we were supposed to, but scheduling
right.
conflicts. I will.
So hopefully that happens. But uh, I was, we talked about who are we going to sign first. I think we went through that whole thing, right?
Mhm.
Of is it going to be a pitcher? Is it going to be a fielder? And what have you. And we signed both of them the same day, a pitcher and a fielder. So, but you're starting the team off with Howie, and Howie was that guy that you just give him a chance and he ran with it.
Hmm.
And so that's a great guy to start the team off with, I believe. Um, the rest of the ones, Diaz, I think he got kind of tired out halfway through the season. Maybe change up how you use him. Maybe help him build up his stamina a little bit. And I mean, I'm going to say he was the player of the year for the team, pitcher of the year for the team up until maybe like a month before the end of the season, kind of just dropped off, maybe a month and a half. So, yeah, solid pitcher, solid fielder, great start. Great having those guys back. I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Just real quick going through Howard Rodriguez, I'll just kind of give his slash line. His batting average is 233, on base percentage of 319, slugging 311, OPS of 630. 14 runs, had one home run, and that one home run came, I believe, in his third game with the Railcats when he traveled to Winnipeg for the first time, where he really caught fire in like the back two games of that series, which more than likely kept him on the roster. So I mean, Howard gives you that nice alternative. He solid glove. You can really put him anywhere you need in the infield at least. He gives you speed on the bases. He's not going to give you a crazy amount of home runs, but he's going to put the bat on ball. There was sometimes I didn't feel like he got his opportunities. I feel like Lamar kind of uh, trusted other people, not trusted, but tried to get other people out of slumps um, on the team instead of using Howard more. But I mean, at that point, it is what it is. You can't really do anything about it. And now I have my dogs attacking my door. They're probably fighting all over the door. So thank you, dogs, for that. Um,
It's better. It's better than what did we have? Did we have a cat that was sitting there, or a dog that was just sitting there staring at the door that one time?
yeah, probably. Howard, I'm excited for him to be back. If not, he's a good depth piece to use if he's not. I mean, obviously there's only two infielders that were signed, so obviously he's on an opening day roster, but he might be one of those Gio Diaz kind of situations where we kind of got a taste of him this year. You give him another offseason under his belt, a real taste of the American Association, and actually give him a fair shot at making the everyday roster. Then you have Grant Umberger, who is a right-handed pitcher, 23 years of age from Chester Springs, Pennsylvania. He played for Virginia Tech for 3 years, then transferred to Toledo his last year, which was this past season. And then he played in the MLB Draft League with Moning Valley. College, it's kind of hard to really stats wise. I mean, in Toledo, he started in all 15 games he played. He had a 381 ERA. Only gave up 8 home runs. He didn't give up any in the MLB Draft League, but that was only 8 games and 43 innings pitched. He's going to be a guy that's going to be able to strike people out and not really walk a lot of people. He kind of has like a 2-to-1 ratio on that one. Uh, he is he's one of those I and when we talk about all these players except Anders, all of them don't have affiliate experience. This is something that is very abnormal because Lamar or the RailCats filled the roster early with affiliate people. Now we're filling it with college players or players that don't really have a lot. Well, I should take that back because
Rookies.
Ethan has a lot of independent experience, but I'm just saying there's not a lot of affiliate ranks in this. So I don't know if it's a maybe, what we did 2 years of let's front load everyone with affiliate experience and it really didn't work out. And maybe we get people that want a fair shot at trying to make it back or try to get to the affiliate ranks. And they're going to give you everything that they have from the moment they step on the field. Not saying that affiliate players don't do that, but it's just maybe a change in philosophy.
Mhm.
Then you bring in Jaykob Acosta, who played what was it, 7 games with the RailCats last year. Only pitched in eight innings, all relief appearances. He his first handful of games were really good. The last back half wasn't the best, but he also played Milwaukee and Chicago, and really at that point the team was kind of already like the season's kind of over with, and Chicago was kind of catching themselves uh, in a hot spot, so you couldn't really blame him for a lot of the stuff. He's pretty even 1 for 1 on walks per nine and strikeouts per nine ratio on that front. He's a 7.3 on both of those. So you like to see those numbers kind of come down, but again, small sample size. There's nothing that you can really do with that. And then you have Ethan Lopez, who is 27 years old. He's a third baseman, center fielder, shortstop, right-handed batter. He is from Whittier, California. He played for the University of Hawaii. A player that's really jumped around from independent baseball. He started his MLB or his independent baseball in the AABC. I'm not really sure what that conference of the All-American Baseball Challenge League. That's was in 2020. Then he went to the Pecos League, and then he played for Rocky Mountain for 2 seasons or 3 seasons In 2021, 2022, and 2023, he did sprinkle in with Mexico. I'm not even going to attempt to say the name that he was a part of. In 2022, he only played 21 games, and then last season he played for Windy City in the Frontier League. He played in 20 games. He scored 9 runs, 18 hits, 4 doubles, 4 RBIs, batting average of 247, on base percentage of 337, slugging 301, and OPS of 393. Uh, Pioneer League, he was averaging almost 333 across the board. At one point, his OPS was in the ones, like really, really good numbers. But again, that's Rocky Mountain and it's in the Pioneer League. So you really got to take those numbers with like a really, really grain of salt. You'd probably knock him down. I would say his season with Windy City is probably what you're more likely going to get from him. Um, Again, not a lot of experience in affiliate ranks. I would probably say that he played with Gio Diaz. I believe that would have been in 2022. So maybe that's some kind of connection that Gio may have thrown a line out to Lamar. It was like, hey, he's interested in playing, so it could be one of those situations. Nothing so far really jumping out at me with some of these players. Again, you can only look at numbers. You can't,
Yep.
it's so hard to say. Then the last signing would have been, yeah, the last signing was Ethan Lopez, but the last one to go is Anders Diaz, who's signed on November 4th. Um, he's the only one with the MLB affiliate experience. He obviously played with the RailCats last year, started the year. He started out really hot. He won pitcher of the week. I believe it was um the week of the May 30th. I forget what exactly week it was. But he pitched 7 scoreless innings, giving up 1 hit, 1 walk, and striking out 7 batters against Kansas City Monarchs team that was highly, at the time, was really to be expected really good, and they were started the season kind of good. But then after that, he just kind of went up and down. He had really good games. He had really rough games, or he would pitch really good games, and like the wins loss just didn't match up. Even his last start of the season, uh, he pitched 7 innings, 7.2 innings, giving up 2 runs on 6 hits and 7 strikeouts, but he still got the loss. Like that happened to a lot of the pitchers. I think this year they didn't get the flowers they deserve because sometimes the offense wasn't quite there, but vice versa. Sometimes the offense didn't get the flowers because the pitching wasn't there. Um, so it looks like we're getting a nice mixture of returning players, newer players, not a lot of affiliate experience. Are we looking at potentially a change in philosophy, or is it just, do you feel that it's at the moment those players that have the affiliate experience are maybe potentially holding out on something?
I think that so last year was kind of an oddball because I don't think anybody realized that Mexico was going to spend as much money as they did and recruit so hard for affiliate or for American Association talent. And so I think the guys that have been around are holding off to see what Mexico does this year. And in doing so, I don't think you're going to see any of those big signings until, probably March is when you're going to start seeing those big names come together. Because Mexico is one of these things where they'll bring in a guy and they'll tell you everything you want to hear, and then as soon as rubber hits the road, it's we've got other people that we need, so we're gonna have to let you go, and that doesn't help us any, right? Because we've got to try to figure out how to put together a roster, and we need to know what talent and what holes we got. So we'll see. I don't think it's a change in philosophy. Maybe it's a change in kind of adapting to what's available or adapting to what other leagues are doing, but who knows? Still good start. Howie, Diaz, young guys. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Hope the best for them, right?
Yeah. And then hopefully getting some of them on so that we get to know them a little bit better prior to the season starting. It's one of those it's funny because even I'm just the American Association typically around this time is really good about like after 2 o'clock they update their website and it's good to go. And then I believe it was when they signed Andres and then Ethan, they didn't put the November 4th up, but then when they did the 5th, they put both of them up. So just like I know I didn't see it.
The guy probably had an off day. He's
So
probably off that
um
day.
but they're typically good with that. So right now it's a weekly thing or daily thing at 2 o'clock. Like I'm like, all right, what do we got here? Um And then I know I'm not really been up to date on the signings and posting about them. It's just with my new job, it's been a little bit difficult. Or well, not, no, it is a new job, but the hours have been a little difficult
Uh,
to try to get anything going. It's kind of depressing when you get off of work and it's pitch black outside.
it's depressing
S-
when you go to work and you come home and it's pitch black.
Yeah, I'm still doing that. Yeah, that's
You know,
it's a little rough, but you know what? Once I get the rhythm and the flow of things, it becomes a little bit better. It's just
keep
I'm
telling
not there quite yet.
keep telling yourself that.
I was in a nice rhythm at the beginning of the year last year when I was in the interim role. So it just takes some time
All right.
and it figures itself out. So yeah, I don't uh really anything to go off of the players. Any other final thoughts on them before I let you
No.
take center stage and
Oh, I'm not going to take center stage. But what I am going to say is that in case you haven't noticed, felt really jealous at your backdrop. And therefore, I decided to turn some things around and show my backdrop.
hmm
And, it kind of, uh, we gave away a couple weeks ago, we gave away some coins, right, to somebody that guessed um, that we were going to face Cleburne for the first series at home. I thought that was an interesting pick, and yet nailed it. Right,
hmm
I was able to give him his pin or his coins. He was excited about that. Um, and I ended up getting some more cool stuff. Uh, I've got a pin here that is 2003 RailCats inaugural home season that we have to give away here. I think that's kind of cool. I also picked up this wonderful thing here that is a team autograph bat from the 2002, yeah, that's right, the inaugural season of the Gary South Shore RailCats before they were actually in the steel yard. This was a travel team that was put together just to get ready for actually having the field.
hmm
I also got apparently when they retired the number of Joe Gates, they handed out this thing,
Oh,
which is kind of cool. So it was Joe Gates Appreciation Day. I like that. That's kind of cool.
and
All
Greg Taggart just got a t-shirt.
right, Uh, also, I've got a baseball,
Ooh.
Northern League baseball, looks brand new, signed by this girl's name is Kelly Joe. She was on the Bachelor season 2. Kind of cool. Um, and then the top best gift you can have, or the best ball you can have, very limited, is the 2003 inaugural home season opening day
Oh wow.
giveaway baseball that I talked to Brandon, does not have this.
Oh.
I think that he didn't even realize this existed.
Huh.
So finally, was able to find a cool thing that Brandon did not have. And I say this because everything that I've come across, Brandon's like, oh, yeah, I got that last year. Oh, yeah, I got that like 6 months ago. Oh, this person was leaving town and they were moving out of the area. And so I got this from him.
Mm.
I'm like, come on, man. He's got the hookup to everybody. So got some cool stuff. But here's the kicker. I got all of this cool stuff from the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy has told me that he will be on the podcast because he is the first, number one, the
He was
first,
number one.
he was the first Gary South Shore RailCats employee. That's right. We will be having the first GM of the
Mhm.
RailCats, the guy who put together the steel yard, the guy who put together the first season team, was with the team for some 10 years, right? We will have him on where we will get to talk about all of the things we've ever wanted to know about the start of the steel yard, about what it was like to have 7,000 fans there for the opening day, all of that stuff. We will get to have a conversation with him, and that is awesome.
And there's most of you might be like, well, Kyle, why is Chuck the one that's hyping this up? Isn't this
Ooh.
supposed to be your
Yeah,
gig?
well, you're not really.
Listen, people, listen. This is what you have to understand. We are now a partnership, okay? So the credit goes both ways. Now, do I pass most of my work off to Ryan, who may or may not be me on the off when I'm off the camera, but that's beside the point. See, the funny thing is Chuck goes on this spree of going on eBay and just buying a bunch of random things. And like I said, he was looking for gold and he ended up finding diamonds. And he did all the legwork. Because even if he necessarily didn't do a lot of legwork, because it just kind of fell into his lap, it's still legwork. Nonetheless, because Roger, who is the first GM,
Yep.
Wexelberg,
Yep.
hopefully I'm saying that right. If I get that wrong, then when we have him on, he's gonna correct me. But he wants nothing. He doesn't want no contact with me. Like it's all been Chuck. Like he contacted the Railcast contact portion on my website because he wanted Chuck and Chuck put all the planning into place and everything. So this was Chuck's find and Chuck gets full credit for this. So this was something like we talked about last week that you and I were both like this wasn't even like on our radar. Like it wasn't even close to being on it.
No.
And when we've been discussing how we might make this work, but I might take a back seat on a lot of what happens during the season, and it may really work on some kind of history because when I posted up the podcast for last week for or technically this week, however you want to lay itself out, not one but two people were like, yeah, this would be something that's interesting to us. So having some kind of history is maybe something in the making of how, especially depending on what kind of conversation we have with Roger. And uh, this is just it's crazy to think the first general manager, the first employee for the Railcats before uh before the stadium was like even in place. It was still a field with a rundown house in it.
Yep.
And he was the first one to put everything together basically.
It almost didn't happen. That's
It,
the thing, is it almost didn't happen. It came together at the 9th hour, the 12th hour, the 23rd hour, or whatever you want to say. It came together at the last minute. The city of Gary, I guess, was hemming and hawing over some things, and they almost had to put the team somewhere else.
yeah,
And we will get to hear that.
yeah.
We get to hear that story. I mean, this is great. And to prepare us for being able to have this conversation, Roger had written some articles for the New
Mhm.
York or for the Northwest Indiana
New York Times, that's a big one right
It
there.
might have been the New York Times. It was pretty darn close, right? And he sent me over the articles. Now this guy, I'm going to tell you, he's got to be a gamer because I mean, like in this, like surrounded himself with baseball, the baseball life,
Hmm.
because I mean, the guy has all of his articles that he wrote from the Times that he took a picture or took pictures of and sent them over for us to read. We'll find some way to post that up so that people can read that.
I, I, I
These articles,
when you're obviously you'll see it if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it. If you're listening to anything else, you won't see it. But I'll have photos posted up over a conversation. But I will have on the website eventually be its own little page, and it'll have all those articles that he wrote on there, so you guys can go back and read through all that stuff as well.
he talks about coming up with the logo, talks about coming up with the name, um, talks about Rusty,
Hmm.
right? And the reasoning behind Rascal. I mean, just like all of these things, we get to. I'm going to put it this way: in the Wizard of Oz, when they look behind the curtain and they see the guy that pulled all the strings to
Yep.
make it happen, we get to interview that guy.
Yep.
How awesome is that? I mean, come on,
It's just crazy to think. I mean, you talk to Renee, we could talk to Jason, they've been there,
right?
but we get to talk to the guy that hired them, basically. Like, we
Right,
get to go back even a step further than that.
right,
Just a crazy to think that who would have, I mean, we're going on what, 20 years since they've won last, or their first championship.
yeah,
And so 22 years of the team being around
23, yeah,
23, 20, around that time, but still, nonetheless, who would have thought, you'd think 23 something years down the road that you would even know who this guy is
right.
and have a chance, such a small world we live in, because he doesn't even live in Indiana. Like,
No,
he's out in mountain time zone. So, like, that's the crazy part about this, is it's such a small world that we actually do live in, and that I understand that it's such a niche thing anyways, that you're going and buying a bunch of stuff on uh eBay, and you end up running the RailCats first general manager of history. And but the thing is, he's kept all this stuff. He obviously takes pride in all of it. It's pristine. Like,
right,
this, it seemed like a guy that poured his life you know, at this point, and he took pride in it. So it's crazy to think of how that all works. Like, it would be easy to go out and find a GM for the Chicago Cubs 20 something years ago, because everyone knew who it was.
right.
And not everyone knows who Roger was. I'm sorry, I didn't even know.
I didn't know his name when he
Like,
I'm like, hey, why do you have all this Railcat stuff? You're not shipping it from Gary, Indiana.
mhm.
And he's like, I was their first employee. I was the first GM.
And,
I'm
and, and
like, how do you find out who that is? So I'm searching. Who's the first GM of the Railcats? Nothing.
you
Who's
can't.
it? Nothing. I cannot find this guy's name at all. And I'm like, this is so messed up.
Well, I
But
mean, I,
when you know his name and you search it, you find a whole bunch of stuff.
well, but see, this is even the crazier part, is you told me about him, so I just typed his name in. I still had to scroll like halfway down to even find anything about the Railcats with him.
Right.
Like, you have to like specifically type, and then once you specifically type that in, you get a lot more. But it's just really crazy to think that how much is actually lost
Right.
in a day and age of where internet's a huge. And I understand it's scary, and it's the American Association. It's nothing groundbreaking necessarily, but for the amount of pride that we have in the region itself, the amount of outlets that we have that are such regional you have Region Sports Network, you have Lakeshore Public Media, you have the Times, and you have the Tribune. All that is all local region stuff right there, and the amount of non-history that is there. I know most of the history is hidden behind a paywall with the New York Northwestern or Northwest Indiana Times, like that's hidden behind a paywall. Like, I get it.
Or the New York Times, same thing. Same
Whatever.
thing.
It's all times of something.
Right.
But I'm saying nonetheless is just to even have like the key to unlock the chest is basically what we have here.
Yeah.
We're trying to lock pick it, we're trying to like peek inside, but now you unlock the thing and it opens up, and now it just unravels so much more.
Oh, I mean, offline, me and you must have had a good 2 hour
Oh yeah.
conversation just about what do we ask this guy? There's so much. What do we want to know? And where do we go from here? I mean, you know, uh, unfortunately, sometimes media changes, right?
Hmm.
We go from the newspaper to online, and a lot of stuff gets lost. Then you go away from, being able to give people access to search things online because these newspapers need the money, and you go to YouTube and stuff like that. Then you start going to podcasts, which aren't very easy for you to do some kind of a search on, right? Because
Hmm.
you don't have an actual typed out thing for it. So you got to spend a lot of time searching for stuff. Um, we are putting something together here that will give people in 10, 20, 30 years the ability to go back and say, I want to learn about the history of the Railcats, and they'll have a way of doing it.
Yeah, and it'll be completely free. No matter we've sat here and we've talked about it, and this will I obviously you and I both don't do this for the money, because if we did, then I wouldn't have to be working a 10
Hold on.
hour job.
Hold on. Time out here. You mean you're not sending me the check? I
No,
thought we discussed this, that I was
no,
getting a check
not.
for doing all the legwork. No, this isn't.
Well,
Okay, anyway.
what I'm saying is we're in a day and age of like where everything is behind some kind of paywall.
Right.
I mean, you gotta think about it. We used to complain about just having cable and how expensive it was. Now you have all these streaming services. You're eventually paying for the same dang thing, and now we're reverting back to everyone's like, well, why don't we just have one big thing that was, one big streaming service that had everything on it? Well, that was called cable, but that's beside the point. Um, but this is something that shouldn't be hidden behind a paywall, because if you really think about it, every other team that's a professional league, MLB, NHL, NBA, NFL, you can go back and you can find their history. Like, it's right there and there. You just type in White Sox, Cubs history, blah blah blah. And it gives you articles and articles and articles that aren't hidden behind a paywall. You can find documentaries. You can find all that. You can't find that stuff here. And the one avenue that you really can find something is behind a paywall.
Right.
So and it's like it's one of those situations where you have to know someone. And at the time we didn't know someone. Now we do know someone that does
Right.
know the history. Now, like I said, we could probably talk to Renee and Jason, but they are still employed with the team, and how much can they actually talk about? Now, their past should be a little bit different, not talking about the current state of the team, but still, nonetheless, they're still working with the team, and their time is also allotted at that point. But Roger he's cut ties. Like, he can give us anything and everything if he really wants to.
Right.
And he could shine some light on some bad things, but hopefully, I think most of it's going to be the good. So,
Oh, I think that I mean, one of the articles he talks about having to let go his first manager,
mhm.
right? And the hiring process of finding a new manager. just stuff like that, that aren't easy things to do as being armchair, GMs. It's easy for us to say this person should lose their job or this person sucks and whatever. It's easy for us to say that. But when you're the guy that has to call somebody in
Hmm.
the office and say, hey, unfortunately, we're going to have to separate and go our different ways, that's a totally different ball of wax. And, you know, you have to, it takes a special person to be able to do that, you know? But here's the thing here, and we discussed this, last week offline. Um, I think, and I think we even mentioned it during the podcast. Uh, we have to make a documentary, and I think that in that documentary, we really focus a lot of it um, on Roger and his knowledge. But I spent a good 45 minutes trying to hunt down the mayor of Gary, Scott King,
Mm.
to see if there's a way of being able to get a hold of him and interview him for a little bit for it if we went that route. Getting a Renee, getting a Jason, and just kind of bringing everybody up to from the start of the steel yard when it was just dilapidated buildings that were sitting there, and then it might not have happened to getting the approval and putting that shovel in the ground to selling out the first game, um, to struggling to get people to show up.
Yeah.
Uh, there was a period of time where that happened. Um, Picking Gary as opposed to picking someplace else that doesn't have kind of the negative vibes that comes with the
And
name
I
Gary.
can
Right?
think
Uh,
of three spots realistically. I mean, you could have gone Cherville area there. You could have gone
uh,
Crown Point. You could have gone Valparaiso. I mean, you could have gone really anywhere. I mean, and we say that, at the time, Crown Point's not the Crown Point it was 20 odd years ago. I mean, I would say maybe more likely maybe Maryville would have been that because Maryville was kind of popping off at that point. I mean, I know Cherville area there because like Central was building every year, extending on onto the high school. Every year that I was going through high school, they were building something else on. But just to think of all those areas that they
right,
could have gone, but they chose Gary.
right. And in one of the articles, it talks about uh, that he had the Miss America pageant contestants wearing RailCats t-shirts. And I mean, come on,
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, w- so excited,
Yeah.
so much to talk about. We'll probably have to split it up into a couple of different podcasts. But the thing is we've opened up this box, and we really have to say to ourselves, what do we do? What's our responsibility with this? And I think that our responsibility is to find a way to get it all down so that people can hear about it in 10 years, 20 years, even in 5 months, right? And be able to look at the history and be able to see uh, how this all came together.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure they have a lot of questions just like I do.
Yeah. There's so much to it that, like I said, you don't have the answers to. A lot of it is time and research, which, to be honest, a lot of us don't necessarily always have.
Right.
I mean, working now, going to be working 50 hours a week, and it's my schedule's going to fluctuate all the time. I'm still gonna have to take time away, but I don't have the time that I used to. I mean, I don't have the time that I used to when I first started the podcast.
Right.
Like I just don't have that much time anymore. But putting that in perspective, knowing that there's other people that care this much about the team that also probably equally or have less time than I do would love to know, would love to do the research, but they don't have the time because they're probably working. They have kids. They got other things like this may not be on people's top priority list of things that they want to try to accomplish because they don't want to go through the hassle of it. But that's why you got us. We'll just go through the hassle
Well,
ourselves.
and I mean, let's be honest. You could spend the rest of your life trying to do research to find what somebody put from, pen to paper
Hmm.
and not have the answers that Roger can give us.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. When you are starting a team, the focus isn't necessarily how did you get into this position? It's more, what are you going to do in a month from now?
Hmm.
What's your plans for 2 months from now? And hindsight 2020, we get to go back and say, hey, why did you do this? And what kind of mistakes did you make? What kind of decisions did you make where you were like, oh my goodness, that turned out 1,000 times better than I thought it would, right? I could think of one, probably hiring Tommy Williams.
Yeah.
You know, he probably thought, hey, this guy will work out. And then next thing you know, it's 1,000 times better than he thought
Yeah.
it, right? So, I mean, there's so many things that you can go back and ask and talk about and all of that. And we have that opportunity. We need to snag up on it. And that's what we get to do for the audience is we get to snag up on it. We get to keep this guy captive for who knows how many hours. And we get to just shine the light over him. You get to be the good cop. I get to be the bad cop. And we just get to ask all the questions we want to ask and
Yeah.
hopefully get all the answers because I think it's going to be magnificent.
Yeah. It is, how should I say it is something that I just don't have words for it, I guess, at this point. I mean, it's sort of something starting. This will be, it's crazy to think that I'll be going on my third year of doing it, but my fourth season doing this. And where it started and where it is now, it's just a major jump between the two. Like it feels like you're looking for the rainbow, right? You found the rainbow, and now you're just trying to find the pot of gold, right? And like, and not saying that like we finally found that full pot of gold, but like we can see it in the distance, and that's one of those where it's right there.
Well, I think you said it last week when we were talking offline. You said if we could make a documentary, and this is all you've ever done as far as media wise,
Hmm.
you could put this together. You could be a satisfied man and sail
Yeah.
off into the sunset, right? And we need to do that. We have the ability to do that. Um, uh, there might be a cost to it, right? But I think we have enough people that would be interested in
Hmm.
this, find some way to get, some financial help to get that, to make that happen. And, hey, who's to say that we don't put something together that looks professional, that works great, that we can put on aabaseball.tv, just like they did the Lamar thing, right? And we can put something together where they can see, where, I mean, I'm sure that there are fans out there for other teams, not as good as our fans, but fans for other teams that are like, I've always wondered how a team gets put together. I've always wondered how much work goes into making sure that all of this stuff comes together the way that it should, right? And they would have the opportunity to see that with Gary.
Yeah.
I mean, this is I am overly ecstatic about it because I not only do I see that pot of gold in the distance, but I also see that there are other pots of gold in the knowledge that this kind of puts together. It's like when you're going through that tunnel and you see that little bit of light,
Hmm.
and when you get to the other side and you look behind and you're like, wow, I just went through the Rocky Mountains, right? And now
Yeah.
there's all of these other things there that we get to look at and we get to see. So I'm excited about it. We're interviewing him on Tuesday. It'll probably be a while to get it out for people to be able to see it. But I would say if there's any, don't want to be inundated with crazy questions, but if there's anything that you're like, I would really want to know this, or I really question this, hey, drop a note, put a comment
Mhm.
down, and we'll take a look. And I mean, heck, we talked for 2 hours and we were still coming up with questions that
Yep.
we want to know.
Yeah.
So
Like I said, we gotta play a little bit of devil's advocate here, just a tad bit, because there are some times that there are people that you interview that it's you ask one question and they take you on a ride,
right,
right? And you just keep going, and you don't have to say a word. They're answering every question that you have, and you're just sitting there in awe. Then you have the teeth pullers, where you're asking a question and they're giving like, yeah, I did that. Okay, yeah, but what about your experience? It was fun.
right,
Like, you gotta look at, so a lot of this is based off of what kind of information Roger's is going to be able to give us. Because, like I said, if he's not going to give us a lot, he's the only he holds the key to the knowledge at this point.
right.
I understand that you may say, well, what about Renee, and what about Jason? They were there when the team was established. They were there when the stadium was probably built.
Well, Jason wasn't there till year two.
That's,
No, I
they were
mean,
probably there after the, not saying that they didn't have to do dirty work, but a lot of the leg dirty work was done prior to that. And what I mean by dirty work, I don't mean like scummy, like under the table stuff. It's just like dirty work, like getting their knees dirty, the heavy lifting portion of it. I don't want people to get that
well, I mean,
misconstrued
you
that this
don't.
was all dirty.
The decisions were already made.
Yeah,
The stadium was already there. The naming was already done. The logo was already there. All of this stuff was. They get to take you on the ride of when they got there and the ups and the downs throughout the seasons. And the memorable people that they got to meet.
yeah.
You know, uh, uh, Michael Jackson came to the stadium with his family, and uh, you know, uh, and then when he passed, they had a memorial service for him at the Steel Yard. Um, it's there's so much outside of baseball, so much inside of baseball. Uh, why the Northern League, the first uh, team that we faced, all of that stuff is, think about it. You put all this time together, and then finally it's showtime, and you have 7,000 people at the
Hmm.
Steel Yard, and it's curtains up, right? What did that feel like? Just there's so much, and this guy has the key, and I feel that he's as excited about. I hope he's as
I,
excited about being able to share the history. Uh,
and you have to think about it that way, because all the stuff that he's given you,
Not giving. I did
well,
buy
like
stuff,
not
right?
giving.
But he gave me a lot of extra stuff. But
What I mean by what you spent your hard-earned money on, and he
right,
sent to you,
right.
is still in pristine condition. It's not like, it's kind of like rough here and there. Like, I mean, even that nice little poster you got over your right shoulder, or yeah, right shoulder there. I don't see any kind of wrinkles or
No.
cuts in it, anything like that. Like,
Oh, beautiful, beautiful posters. I mean,
still
like
rolled
legit.
up beautifully.
Rich, did I
Like,
tell you I got you one, right? And I'm gonna show it to you. I got you this one.
yes.
See, right here. It's
That's
got the
awesome.
RailCats logo with the Blackhawks logo, and it is from the championship season.
2010, yeah.
Yeah.
I,
So
that's just, but
beautiful.
That's just crazy. It's just that stuff that he still has and how well of condition it is that all the signs lead to he is going to give us everything that we want and probably more.
Right, right. And his response, I wish I could pull up the email. He's excited that this stuff is going to RailCats fans.
Yeah.
I mean that's it, right? So that being said, he's got a lot of other stuff. Um, and I don't really necessarily want to be a conduit to to the middleman. But he's got, a nice Letterman's jacket from the first year. He's got another one of these baseball bats signed by the whole first year team before they were even in the steel yard.
Yeah.
He's got an autographed team bat from the 2005 season. I mean, he's got all of this cool stuff. Uh, and obviously this was his life. This was
Yeah.
his passion that he poured a lot of time into. He moved from Florida to Gary
Wow.
to put this team together. His parents lived in Dyer, and so he knew the area,
Yeah.
which makes me think that he probably knew the situation Gary was in, and that this would, maybe this was his lifeline to the city of Gary of, hey, I want to see something great in Gary. There's just so much.
Yeah. There's so much and like I said, me and you could go on and on and on and on
We're
and
not,
on and on.
we're gonna save it for with Roger on.
But we're gonna have to save it for Roger when he's on, and we won't bore you too much with not boring, and we wouldn't say that. But I know you guys are probably like you probably said first general manager of the Railcats, and you guys were probably already on the edge of your seat, and you probably didn't hear another lick of what we said afterwards because you just wanted to hear what Roger has to say instead of us because
Right.
we don't have the answers. But so we're gonna wrap it up. We'll wrap it up. So Chuck, for this week. Do you have any more final thoughts?
Well, we're going to make a commitment right now. Even if Roger is that one answer guy, which I doubt that he is, we're still going to grab that information the best that we can, and we're going to put it together for people to hear and for people to be able to learn about. And we are going to work on the documentary.
Yep.
I'm
Well,
committed. You're committed?
I'm the man with the computer, so I got to be committed, I guess.
Right. So that's what we got. I guess that's the bigger news, right? The bigger news is we're going to work on a documentary. I don't think that we need to get approval from anybody. I hope not, but this is what we're going to do. And in doing so, I think that this podcast will talk about the Railcats, we'll talk about the signings and stuff like that. But we've really moved, if you think about it, we've really moved this thing up some levels. And having Joe on was a big
Yeah.
step, right? Getting new players on was a big step. All-stars, big step. This is another big step that we're making. And I don't know that we necessarily have very many more big steps that we can make. A championship team would be great,
Yeah.
right? That would be fantastic. Getting some people from behind the scenes on, that would be fantastic, right? But I think that us sharing our steps to making this documentary and using this podcast as part of that, one of those tools, I think that is keeping us at that level.
Yeah.
And to me, that's exciting. That's exciting stuff.
Well, for Chuck, I'm Kyle. This is the Railcast Talk podcast.
Let's do
I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your
or
evening,
night,
whenever you're watching this,
3 o'clock in the morning.
and go Cats.
Go Cats.
The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike three. Wrap this one up in green and